Good morning. So I'm out on my little 4-mile route that I try and do every day when I'm not able to be out hiking, just to stay in shape. It's that move it or lose it thing. And for those of you who follow my channel and know that my Florida trail was interrupted a couple of times this winter because my mother-in-law was in hospice, and she passed last night, and I was so glad that I was able to come home and contribute to helping her for the last month. And so life is fleeting. It goes by like a Denny McLean fastball. If you don't know who Denny is, look him up. So you should pursue your passions and try and live a full life. Don't put things off. So when I get back to the meditation shack today, I will try and answer some of the comments that I got while I was gone. I've had time to go over a lot of them. I love comments. So it gives me the opportunity to see what other people are thinking about gear, about food, about just methodology of backpacking. And I've always said you got to find your own little happy space, and when I do these videos, it's how I do it, and that hopefully helps some people at least think about how they're gonna do it. Anyway, when I get back, we'll talk about some of those comments. So again, I love comments, and I learn a lot from them, and I usually don't deal with them on the trail, but since I've been home, I've had a chance to go over a lot of these, and a lot of them are really interesting. So the first one is, what does your doctor think of you hiking long trails at your age? Well, I could use the old George Burns. He was talking to Johnny Carson one night on the Tonight Show, and Carson asked him what his doctor was saying about his health, and he said, "My doctor's dead." But I can't say that because I don't have a doctor. All my friends that have doctors, a lot of them are dead. And so do I want one of those guys? I don't think so. And I said my mother-in-law passed last night. Well, like a lot of people, as they age, they get on the drug gravy train, and she was no different. She had a whole bag of pills that doctors put her on, keep your heart going, keep your blood pumping, keep your brain working. I didn't take drugs in the 1960s, and I'm not going to take them while I'm in my 70s. When I get to the point where I'm bedridden, I might take Viagra just so I don't roll out of bed. But other than that, I'm staying away from drugs. So the last time my dad saw a doctor, he said, "Ernie, you're going to die, so just go home and stay as comfortable as you can." And as my dad came out of the office, he said to us, "Well, that was encouraging." So I'm the wrong guy to ask about doctors. My doctor's my right leg and my left leg right now, and as long as they keep moving, I'm a happy camper. So I did answer this one. Do you cut your toothbrush handle off? No, actually, I've used the same toothbrush, same type of toothbrush for years and years and years, and it's the one that is short that goes into a holder that keeps it clean when I'm not using it. I bought something, I think, from Garage Growing Gear, or one of those outfits, and just as a little gift, they sent me a toothbrush about this big with a little flat-ended handle on it, and to me, that's probably the best way to get norovirus on the trail, sticking your fingers in your mouth trying to brush your teeth with a toothbrush this long. So my answer was no, that's probably why people get norovirus. Their toothbrush is so short they have to keep sticking their hand in their mouth. on that subject, you don't have to obsess over cutting excess straps off your gear or filing down your tent pegs or using a trash bag as your rain gear unless you focus on being ultra light. You know, even with the budget gear options today, it's easy to be lightweight backpacker. Start there. That's more than good enough. Then you can experiment with the ultra ideas. Just remember, the less carried you should have offset with more skill and experience. You have to find your happy place. The common saying, embrace your suck, doesn't mean putting up with it forever. You know, look up the definition. It means to accept the current situation and work toward changing it. So the lighter you get, the more you're going to suck. So just keep trying to, you know, change things, figure out what kind of sucker you want to be. So anyway, you know, I have nothing against ultra light backpacking. I mean, everybody would like to get there. It's just a matter of how much you want to suffer. And if you watch enough YouTube videos, you see a lot of people that have been, and I admire them. I mean, I've seen them do a lot of long trails, and I know they have very little, and I sometimes wonder, you know, how can they do that? Because it's got to be miserable and a lot of conditions that you run into on a long trail. But now, as I've watched them over the years, you know, maybe they're getting older and wiser, or just don't want to put up with the suck anymore. You know, they're getting tents instead of tarps. You know, they're adding layers, maybe carrying a stove because they want a hot meal. You know, like I say, I yo-yo. I go through that stuff all the time, and I get lighter and lighter as I can. But then I add, you know, some layers of luxury, and I'm happy at my weight. That's what you really need to shoot for. And if that's cutting off your toothbrush, have at it. Okay, I can see you carry an inflatable pillow. Isn't it smarter to just use your clothes and a stuff sack as a pillow? No, I've tried all that. Like I say, I've been at this for decades, and I've done all that. You know, I've slept on my clothes. I've used a halfway inflated 1 liter platy. You know, all those sound like great ideas, but I didn't get the kind of sleep I get today now that I have a inflatable pad, an inflatable pillow. I mean, they have their downsides because, you know, they leak. My pillow's leaking right now. It's probably the third one I've had, but it's a slow leak. So if I wake up at night and have to put a couple puffs of air in it, no big deal, because I'm still sleeping a whole lot better than I used to. Your clothes get compacted. That platy was so small, my head was always rolling off of it. Before that, you know, sometimes I had nothing. I'd sleep on my pack. I just didn't get a good night's sleep. And those were the days before the inflatable pads too. And me personally, I'm not coming back to those ideas, so don't look for me. I like sleeping. Well, I sleep like a box of rocks, and it's because I'm comfortable, and I'm comfortable because I have an inflatable pillow and an inflatable pad, and I like it. How do you decide on a camping site? Well, again, if you watch a lot of videos and even a lot of tent manufacturers talking about their tents and, you know, how you set it up to face the wind a certain side, or, you know, if you can get under trees, you'll save some condensation buildup. You're going to find when you get out on the trail, especially a popular trail. So you get out on any trail, a lot of times you would think that you could just stop anywhere and set up your tent. Well, you can't. You got to have, if you go on a nice flat spot or a sheltered spot or any spot, they're kind of hard to come by on a lot of trails. And so on a popular trail, a lot of those primo spots are going to already be taken up when you get there. You're not even going to find a postage stamp worth of real estate when you get there, because other people have already stopped early. So my problem is I'm the last guy to stop. And so my options get smaller and smaller. And it's the reason I keep a small tent, because that then increases my chances of finding a place. And you know, if I can find the optimal place, fine. But if my place is next to water, I'm going to stay next to water. If I'm not under a tree, I'm out in the open. If I'm on a ridge in a windstorm, I'll deal with it. Again, one of the reasons I have the tent I have, it'll take all those conditions. It'll keep the condensation off me because I don't pick a site. A site picks me when it's starting to get dark and I need a spot, and it's not always the ideal spot. But again, it's how you're going to hike. A lot of people like to stay in camp for a while and relax, and I'm just not that kind of a hiker, but a lot of people are. So then you can look for sites and, read a few blogs and you'll know what to look for if you don't already. But staying away from water, trying to stay under some tree cover without getting killed by a widowmaker. There's lots of things you can do to keep condensation down. You want a nice flat spot. You don't want to sleep in an impression that's going to rain and make a pool out of it. So those are things to look for. But again, I just kind of take potluck whatever I can find. Is eating cold food really that enjoyable? Well, you probably remember your mom said, don't play with your food. Well, play with your food. I mean, that's what I do. I'm always trying different foods. And when I started cold soaking, I wasn't the first one to jump on that bandwagon. It didn't sound fun to me because I liked my hot food. And I still have a lot of freeze-dried number 10 cans that I bought. And when I find them on sale, I buy it. And then when I started going to cold soaking, you really can't cold soak that freeze-dried Mountain House stuff. And so I've got a lot of it, and it's kind of the reason I'm going to go back to carrying a stove. Once in a while I'll have one of those meals, but I tried enough, not cold soaking, but cold meals. Now I am cold soaking this rice and beans I'm using now, but before that it was mostly tortilla wraps. And I just found a lot of things that I really enjoyed, and I didn't miss that stove at all. I still really don't miss that stove, but it is nice to have, and it's only going to cost me about 5 ounces to carry it if I continue to use my Grail water filter titanium, because it's already got the pot on it. So I'm probably going to go back to that. But cold soaking or eating cold meals, there's tons of options out there if you spend enough time and don't go out on the trail and try it. Try it at home and see what you like, what you don't like. And pretty soon you'll have a menu, a trail menu that will make you happy, and you won't need a stove. I mean, it's pretty easy to do once you try them all. So again, just got to find out what makes you happy. How did you lose the sight in your right eye? I didn't lose it. I never found it. I was born with the amblyopia. They call it lazy eye. When I was a kid, other kids that had amblyopia, they would put a patch over the good eye and see because I can see light out of this eye. The eye dilates and it looks normal, but I just can't see out of it. And so I was in Glacier backpacking many years ago, but anyway, I was up at Ptarmigan Pass, I think, and I ran into a guy. We were cooking together because you have to cook in a certain spot at each campsite in Glacier. And he was an eye doctor from Colorado, and we were talking, and I told him I had amblyopia, and he said he did too. And so then I brought up the fact that they put a patch on kids' eyes, but they never did that to me. And he said, well, can you see out of your right eye? And I said, no. And he said, well, duh, that's why they didn't put a patch over your good eye. And I said, well, you told me you had amblyopia and they put a patch on you. And he said, well, there's different, there's varying degrees of it. He could see out of his eye. And I must have had a severe case of it, and so they didn't patch me. I have no depth perception, never have. But I don't feel I'm handicapped at all. I've never had it, so I've never missed it. I'm deaf in the same ear, and I don't know what happened at birth, but my brother, who's 3 years older than me, said there was so much wrong with me when I was born that the doctor slapped my mother. So I don't know, but it is something concerning. It's why I wear glasses. My other eye was 20/20, but I wore glasses before. I went to the eye doctor before I knew my alphabet. I remember he showed me lions and tigers on the wall, and I think that I just want to protect my good eye, because I'm in a hurt locker if I lose that one. So I was in Alaska. We had an Airstream, and we had spent the summer in Alaska, and it's so wet up there that I had mold growing inside the trailer. So I was cleaning it with Clorox and spilled Clorox in my good eye, and that scared me. That's the only scare I ever needed. My wife took me to the hospital, and they washed out the saline solution and told me I should go see an eye doctor, but we didn't have very good insurance. So on the way out of Alaska, I had a friend who was a ophthalmologist at Berkeley in California. So I went down to see Ashby and had him examine my eye. And he's the first one to explain to me that it's really the optic nerve that goes around and plugs into your gray matter that causes this problem. And he said, "You're just not all plugged in." And today that makes sense, because nerve will regenerate itself. And kids today that have my condition when they're young, if they catch them before they're like 7 years old, they give them computer games to play that makes that eye exercise, and that nerve will often regenerate itself and they can see again. So I don't think they do that with 75-year-olds, so I don't play computer games. Okay, that's the eye question. Anyway, keep the comments coming. The video, a couple videos ago, I talked about my Hilleberg tent, and that got a lot of comments, and a lot of people had a lot of different opinions about the price of the tent, the weight of the tent, what they use. And I find that all very interesting. I'm not looking for people to agree with everything I say. I'm just trying to tell people what I do, and if that helps in any way, great. And if not, take everything with a grain of salt. I do. Anyway, keep smiling.